5:04 on June 14th, 2021. So we'll go ahead and call into the session of the City of Apache Junction Public Arts Commission. And we'll go ahead and get started with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, good to see everybody again. Sorry I missed our work session in May, but it's also good to see y'all's faces. So appreciate it. We'll go ahead and move forward to the approval of, roll call. Sorry, thank you.
Roll call. Commissioner Klett. Vice Chair Nicholas.
Here.
Chair Bias.
Present.
Commissioner Coe called and is out of town, I guess. Commissioner Danford.
Here.
Commissioner Ham.
Present.
You have 4 present. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to item number 4 here, approval of agenda, approval of the April 2021 agenda.
So we need a motion to approve the agenda.
That's the agenda from today.
I move that the Public Art Commission accept the agenda as presented.
I second that motion.
Oh, sorry, and to clarify, that's the agenda for today's meeting. Sorry, I'm knocking a little rust off here.
Okay, Vice Chair Nicholas.
Yes.
Chair Bias.
Yes.
Commissioner Danford.
Yes.
Commissioner Ham.
Yes.
Motion is approved, Mr. Chair.
Fantastic. All right, well, thank you very much. We'll move on then to approval of the minutes, consideration for approval of regular minutes of April 12th, 2021. And is there a motion for approval of the previous minutes?
I move that the Public Art Commission approve the minutes from the April 12th, 2021 meeting as presented.
I'll second the motion.
And I guess would it be a point of order if I have a comment on the minutes that I noticed? When reading through them, it noted the date of the meeting was June 7th, I think, instead of the 14th. But pretty minor.
Where's that?
Okay, all right, we can correct that. Who had the second? Was
I did.
okay. Chair Bias.
Yes.
Commissioner Danford.
Yes.
Commissioner Ham.
Yes.
Vice Chair Nicholas.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we got that out of the way. Thank you. And I'll make a note that we correct the minutes to have the correct date in there. We did not receive any announcement of artwork from any commissioners, so I think we can skip that one.
All right.
No public hearings.
Moving into old business then. Item 21-319, presentation, discussion, and review of the Commission's planning workshop held on May 8th, 2021 with Dianne, Cripe of Artspace 6, LLC.
So just to set this up, we had talked, Chair Bice, and there were a couple people that, although everybody here was there except for you, I believe, that we would do a quick overview of kind of what happened on that Saturday, and then there was a memorandum that was part of Diane's scope. So the memorandum is attached, so she's not going to read the memorandum. She's just going to go through a much abbreviated slideshow, just to kind of give a high-level overview of what happened. And if you've read the memo, you kind of already know, but this was just
Okay.
the high-level overview. Yep, I'm ready.
Okay, hang on to your seatbelts.
Okay.
You already told me to talk fast. I'm not going to talk too fast, but. So this is, as Larry just mentioned, an abbreviated version of the workshop. And one of the first things we talked about was how public art responds to the community. There's always community involvement. For any public art program to be successful, you've got to get buy-in from your public. And that we're looking for artwork that's going to celebrate the unique history and landscape and the cultures, as well as the collective memory of the city of Apache Junction. It can also contribute greatly to revitalization I've seen firsthand how they're, like, for instance, City of Goodyear has an older downtown that was thriving in the 30s and 40s, and they did a couple of public art projects and upgraded a park, and it made a huge, huge difference, and the residents were so grateful. It's great if you can get an artist in early when you're designing, like, let's say you're going to build a new civic building. If you get a public artist in right from the get-go, then that artist has a chance to do something that's actually part of the infrastructure of the building, so that's always recommended. And there's also streetscapes, parks, other types of civic buildings where public art makes a huge difference. It transforms public spaces and landscape, and it articulates the city's values and aspirations. So that's one of the things that you as a commission should think about, is what are the aspirations and what do you see as the great hope for public art for the city and how it's going to reflect the city. Then I just took out a lot of the slides of illustrations of how you integrate public art, and this was a parking structure at ASU that had a park-like structure in front of it. And so we had the artist who was out of state but went to Des Botanical Garden, created these carved limestone, basically sculptures to sit on top of a seating area. And it's very functional, it's very well used. Dog park is your #1 choice for your first public art project. So I put this one up here as just an example of a public art project for dog parks. Infrastructure, this is an area near Papago Park where City of Tempe needed a bridge. So this is an artist designed bridge, and it really fits well into that particular landscape. And then if you have, mega bucks for statement art pieces, this is the blue bear. And Jeff's very familiar and talked a lot about why he's a blue bear, because he wasn't originally intended to be a blue bear. But it's a signature piece for the city of Denver, and it's a conversation piece. And it looks just as great if you're on the inside of the building looking out as the other. So media and art is a nice way to spruce up a particularly downtown area that's relatively low cost. It can also be temporary, so you don't have to buy it. You may want to put out a call to artists for artists to suggest their already created artwork to put in a median. Shade is a huge issue here. I mean, summers are not going to be getting any colder here. They're just going to get hotter. So this is a park and ride for the City of Phoenix where they created these large screens that are not just a great place to sit. There's a bench at the bottom there, but it also offers a lot of shade. Okay, roundabout is your second choice of location, and this is just one example of a roundabout art piece. So there's a lot of discussion about public art master plan. Then in terms of doing a public art master plan, one of the things that I brought up at the workshop is I don't think that you're quite ready to be doing that. Usually they cost quite a bit of money. It involves a lot of public involvement. You have events, you have people, residents, you have the Public Information Office issue a press release inviting everybody to come out to events. You talk about how the public sees the future of public art in Apache Junction. So there are a lot of meetings, there are a lot of online surveys, and then there's the data collection and the data analysis. And all that takes quite a bit of time and quite a bit of hours. And I would say, get a few public art projects under your belt before you start thinking of doing that. And also, it's a win when the public sees that you're already commissioning 1 or 2 or 3 pieces of public art, and they say, wow, public art is really happening in Apache Junction. I want to know more about it. I want to weigh in on it. I want to know a little bit about what it's going to be like in the future. So also, you have a public art plan a master plan that it's going to give you your goals, strategies to achieve those goals, extra policies or ordinances. If there are certain policies that you don't have, they make recommendations for that. They look at the city overall as a whole, and after talking to members of the public, they also suggest some future locations for public art. So that's public art master plan. I usually see them, they're anywhere from like 50, 75, 100 pages long. They do an assessment of what the collection currently is and the condition of the current collection, and they make recommendations if maybe a sculpture needs to be moved, and so forth. So That's a brief summary of what a public art master plan is. But what I'm recommending is.
If I could,
Go
one
ahead.
second.
Sure.
And then there's a higher level plan that Diane and I have been talking about, or you may have seen. That's really a community arts plan that really gets into all sorts of art, whether it's theater arts, whether it's, arts in schools. So at some point, she's going to talk a second about the project, but I just want to know, kind of set the idea that there's a community-wide community arts plan, then public art, which is really the charge of this commission, and then really focus on what we really can do right now, which is so sorry to interrupt, I just
No,
kind of
no,
want to
that's
get that third higher level that the first two we're not really in a position to do yet, but the next one we are, that Diane's
Yeah.
going to.
I think that's an excellent point, because I know the city of Tempe just did an arts master plan, and it included arts in the park, drama, theater, dance, all those different artistic disciplines. And the city has an ordinance that funds that as well as public art. So that's why they felt that, even though the city of Tempe is not a huge city, they felt that it was important to have an arts master plan. But usually arts master plans are for a city that has quite a large funding stream to fund all of those different arts disciplines. But what might be good at this point is to do a public art project plan. And you've already started doing that. You've selected 3 different projects. So it's going to be more specific. It's going to be a guide for art locations and the budget for those 3 locations, public art, as well as a timeline. The first project is going to be dog park. We know that. So every year, staff presents a budget. If you have, $100,000, which has been promised by a developer, then you have that amount of money to spend on public art during X year. So that's when you start prioritizing the locations and the amount of money you want to spend on the projects. The commissioners help to prioritize those locations, and you've already done that. You've got a great aerial view of all these different city parks and different intersections and so forth. It also includes a brief description of the program, of the public art program for the city of Apache Junction. It just has a brief description about what are the goals. Let's say, for a goal for a dog park is something that's dog related or dog themed is probably your best bet for a dog park. It can be a lot of different things as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be a statue of a dog. It can be something that's seen from the viewpoint of a dog, which is very low to the ground. There's a project at Valley Metro Light Rail right now where an artist is creating a screen that's going to go on one of the light rail stations. And the artist, Mary Lucking, who's local, has designed a medallion for the middle that gives kind of a bug's eye view or a dog's eye view looking through the grass. So that opens it up to how an artist wants to interpret what a dog-themed public art work might be. So brief description of each project, current and ongoing, the goals of each project, how they will function. Is it functional art? Is it going to be a bench? Or is it going to be a decorative sculpture? Is it going to be a gateway sculpture? What is the budget? What's the location? And what is your timeline for commissioning an artist to do that? And, projects can very often be multi-year. You have a call to artists, and when you issue it, you give the artist like 6 weeks to respond. Then the artist selection panel gets together, they select the artist, and then you have the process of developing a concept. The public has to look at that and, weigh in on that. Sometimes often the public art project gets tweaked. The public artist is usually someone who's very open and willing to make changes based on public input. And then it can be 9 months of fabricating the artwork, depending on the scale of the artwork. So you're looking at, probably a pretty long timeline once you set out that call to artist. Again, public is invited to attend the meetings where the art concepts are presented. You especially want to have people from that neighborhood to come in and see it. The worst thing in the world is you have a public art piece and it's put up in the neighborhood, and then suddenly it's the first thing the neighborhood has heard about it, and that doesn't usually go well. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the selection process. And, having a panel of probably 5
Diane,
to
if
7
I could,
people.
real quick.
Sure.
So on your agenda, you have a summary of the May 8th meeting. So we also have on the agenda, the next item on the next page is discussion about preparation of a public art plan. So you're kind of moving into that?
Okay.
All right.
Well, this was presented at the May 8th
Okay,
meeting
I
as
just
well.
wanted to, we can kind of take these somewhat together if you want, I guess, is
Sure.
the first and the third one. Sorry for that interruption, I just
No,
didn't
that's
wanna
okay.
have you get to the next item and you say, oh, I already talked about that at the,
I've already talked
So.
about it, Larry.
okay. Well, I know Joel has to get out of here early, but,
So, yeah, I think that's basically a public art plan, just looking at those 2 slides, what a master plan versus a project plan is, and all the different elements that you're going to have. The project plan is definitely going to be shorter. It's going to be a few pages. It's not going to have, the bulk of a master plan. It's going to give a history. It's going to talk about the ordinance. It's going to talk about the process of selecting a particular location for that art piece. So there'll be some background information, but it's not going to be significant. Do you want me to continue with the slides, or?
sure.
Yeah, we can go ahead and move to the next agenda item.
Well, I think we'll come back and do the work plan as a separate item, that's all, is all I kind of wanted to.
Okay, that sounds good. So
Yeah.
I'll finish this, and then if there are still questions about the public art project plan, I can go into more depth. Okay. Any questions so far? Does anybody have any questions about the differences between the master plan and the project plan? Anybody?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Appreciate it.
So, Public Art Commission process, we've talked about this before, not just at the May 8th meeting, but also in previous Art Commission meetings. You've got a selection panel. We've talked about the makeup of the panel. There'll definitely be probably 2 commissioners on each public art project panel, and it'll rotate. So everybody gets a chance to be on a different project panel, and then we'll bring in either community members who have a vested interest in that, or arts professionals who have no interest in that particular project but can offer their expertise as a panelist. So we talked about that. And then once they meet, they select the artist, they select an alternate in the event that the first artist cannot fulfill that particular project, and that does happen. I've had an artist who couldn't get insurance, and we had to go to the number 2 artist, and it worked out just fine. But we didn't have to take the time to go back and have another panel. You negotiate the artist contract and develop a timeline, and then refine the design with staff. This is when the artist kind of gets to work and gets to know about the community, knows about the neighborhood, and then comes up with the art concept. And then we have people come in, like he'll have a public meeting, they'll come in and they'll look at the boards and they'll say, yeah, this is really great, or I think you need to do this, or whatever. So we get some input. The artist then has a chance to create the final design concept and move forward from that. So, recommendations, these are coming out of the May 8th workshop, is review the public art plan annually with all the city departments. Like right now, we'll be teaming up with Parks and Rec because they are working on the dog park and they have funding to contribute to a public artwork there. You also work with community development, economic development, public works. If there's a certain street project that might lend itself to public art, that's a possibility, and Parks and Recreation. And then develop a public art project plan based on new capital projects, as well as developer, construction, and other funding streams. You have an ordinance that is both. There are a lot of cities that have just the municipal percent for art, but you have both the municipal and the art and private development. And I believe they're also in the same ordinance. So you've got a couple of different funding streams for public art. The artwork should be site-specific. Instead of thinking ahead of time, I know a certain artist and he creates this artwork, so I think we need to buy the artwork and put it there. This instead is going after an artist who's going to create something just for that site. The artist is going to take into context of the neighborhood, the surrounding buildings, the landscape, and the history, and then come up with an art concept. So that's what I mean by site-specific. It's going to be to scale. It's developed with the location and budget in mind, and on rare occasions, purchase art directly from an artist or gallery. That does happen occasionally. If you have a project and for whatever reason you need a project and you need an artist right away, down the road create this database of artists, and you do the same thing. You do an RFQ, you send it out nationally. You know, we would like to see if you're interested in being part of an artist pool for consideration for future projects. They're like the state of Washington is doing that right now, and they create a pretty good sized database of artists. And then if, let's say, you get a project and it needs to be completed in a very short timeline, and you've got a good database, you can go right to the database and select an artist from that. And another thing is consider low-budget temporary public art. I mean, there may be artworks out there, they're already fabricated, they might look great in a certain place, and you don't have to pay for it. You pay for installing it, but you don't have to pay to buy it. Okay, have a good
If I can
donation.
ask real quickly on
Sure.
maybe, I apologize if y'all covered this in the work session, but with us focusing on the project plan, would that be reviewed by city staff basically as a catalog of project plans? So our public art, in lieu of a master plan, would just be a review of ongoing projects from the commission, essentially?
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be, and I can get an example of what the City of Phoenix does. They do like an annual plan, or they take their annual plan and they just have one that lasts for 5 whole years, because they have several districts, and you want to make sure all the districts are represented. So they've created an annual project plan, and it's very brief. You're basically, the name, title of the artwork, the artist's location, the budget. They'll have a photograph of the finished artwork or a photograph of the concept that's in process of being fabricated. And it has maybe a 1-page introduction before that, and then it'll give a summary. So that's basically what they do for a project plan.
So we would have 3 of those. I got one project plan, but we have 3 pieces of art. So we're talking about the dog park,
Right.
the roundabout, and then Silly Mountain. So those would be our first 3 projects, and we build a plan around those. That can be, I guess, our template for adding to that over time, or as monies come in from developers. Again, maybe we have enough money where we want to take some city dollars and then add developer dollars and do something at Silly Mountain, for example. And then we never got to a 4th. We figured that first 3 projects might get us through a year, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all dependent on funding, so, okay. So have a donation plan. If there are people who want to donate artwork, make sure you've got a pretty clear set of criteria for whether you want to accept it or not. Because once you accept it, once you own it, you have to take care of it. You need to make sure they've used the right fabrication methods and the right materials, or it's not going to last. Have a yearly goal, list of goals, objectives, update your work plan regularly, engage the public, and that's basically it.
I have one question. We go back to the donation criteria.
Yeah.
Who is going to develop that criteria? And I mean, I know we're talking about, possible durability due to the weather or whatever. That's one of the considerations. But another one is aesthetically, who's going to make that decision?
That's a great question. That's one of the criteria, is that you have a panel to decide whether to accept it or not.
Create a policy first. So I think this policy would be developed at this level. Council could approve it, but it, I think, really gets into maintenance, making sure there's no strings attached. I mean, I think the ordinance calls for some level of dollar maintenance. Maybe there's copyright issues we have to figure out, things like that. So all that becomes part of a policy. When we say criteria, I think it's more of a policy, and then how it's applied. Because again, and one of those is the art appropriate at all? Is it appropriate for the city? Is it appropriate for the location? So that, I think, is the work in progress. Ultimately, it seems like the council should approve that policy, but it could be drafted here.
And I know we're kind of moving into the next agenda item here as well with this topic, with it being an action item on the work plan as well, to create a donation policy, so.
Yeah, that's, they're definitely there, and this was on there earlier, I believe, but created donation policy is one of the items. And I'm happy, I've worked on donation policies before, and it's, criteria, artistic excellence, one of a kind, it's original, you can certify that that artist created that artwork. Their list, and in addition to the materials and how durable they are. So there are a whole list of things that you want to consider before you say, yes, we're going to take that. There are artists who want to donate something and they'll say, here's a maintenance plan. It'll be a sheet of like 12 items. And it's going to cost a whole lot of money if you're going to fulfill all those 12 items on a very regular basis. So maintenance is another thing. They may want to donate something that needs conservation. And then you have to decide, well, if it's a Robert, Indiana, and it's not a lot of money, yeah, you probably want to accept it. But in most cases, if it's going to require a lot of money to make sure it's suitable to be in a public place, then it's something to seriously consider.
I have a quick question. So would it be improper while developing the project plans to develop the donation policy in tandem? Or are they two separate things that should not be developed together at all?
I think they're two separate things because one is a plan and one's a policy.
Okay.
And, and I asked, how often do people want to donate works of art? And if it's not very often, you've got a little bit of time before to work on a donation policy. But you do want to get it not too distant future in case someone says, I have this and I want to donate it. And if you don't want it, I may want to donate it somewhere else. And if it's something that would fit well in the collection, and you have to think about the overall collection, do you want to have something that's extremely repetitive? Do you want to have something that's the same theme as something you already have, or just, there are a lot of things that, to consider. Because once you accept it, you're in charge of locating it. It's going to cost money to install it somewhere. You don't want it to get picked up and carried away. It's going to have to require regular maintenance. It may require, well, it will require conservation down the road. So I don't know that you need them both at the same time.
We do need one at some point because developers can donate art in lieu of giving us the money. But I think we should focus on the three projects that we know are on the near horizon, and then kind of this, to me, would follow after that, along with perhaps a few other things. But
Okay, any other questions? Those are all great questions.
All right, well, thank you very much. With that, I guess, do we have additional presentation on the work plan for the next agenda item?
yes, so the work plan I asked, so a couple things in Diane's contract. One was to produce the memo that's attached to here, which is a summary of what happened at the meeting and then to conduct the meeting. Another one that is still ongoing is a review of the ordinances that the council has. So really, the ordinance in Chapter 1 that creates the commission, Chapter 4 are the fees, so I don't think Diane has to look at the fees, but essentially, and then the zoning code in Chapter 1-13, I think it is to have her do a memo. It's not in the work plan here, but it's in the scope that we have, is to kind of, what's her take on the ordinances that we passed? And maybe that concentrates. To me, that was going to help if there's anything to add to the work plan or move things, but that's another work product. So I asked Diane, just as part of trying to get my head around, are we doing a community arts plan? Are we doing a public art plan? Now we're doing a project plan. So if we're doing a project plan, how does all this flow? And what is the proper sequence of events that we should be following to get the first 2 or 3 projects going?
So then, the expectation, I guess, is that that memo will be developed, we'll compare it to the current work plan, kind of see where there's overlap, and use that as a basis going forward to further develop the project plan.
Yeah, so again, we can talk about when to start the project plan and how we're going to get that moving along, but I wanted to kind of this is a document that the commission has kind of paid attention to, so I thought, well, let's update it and see, in light of what happened on May 8th and things we need to be doing, what does that look like right now? So I think, Diane, did you add all these things, or is this something that, I don't even know, to be honest with you, I've never looked
work
at the,
plan?
well, all these tabs that were built into the work plan. I know you updated this.
No, I didn't, no.
Yeah, so I don't know where this came from.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't either.
This is our current list, right? And then we had some ideas, we had grant opportunities. This is, maybe Heather put this together. I'm guessing Heather put all this together.
Right.
And I guess I haven't looked at that.
And I think, I think maybe it's been updated. We'd have to double check if it's been updated with our kind of cataloging that we did. I guess it was last fall.
Yeah,
But I think, yeah, that the intent was that would be integrated into this document. But I anticipate a significant amount of overlap between kind of what's here and what would be in kind of the project plan and kind of the next steps.
I think that's okay, too. I mean, this is really brief. So when we get into doing a project plan, we'll be able to expound on this. This is just like a very basic, short description of that.
right. So again, I think when you look at some of the items we've already done, I don't know about the pamphlet. I guess I haven't seen a pamphlet. But the mapping is done, the webpage, the inventory, adopt the work plan. As you can see, there's updating the work plan, which I guess we do every meeting, but I have not seen any pamphlet. I think we agreed on a logo, but that's about it.
It looks to me like this pamphlet is really for developers as a guideline for what the developer's responsibility is. It
Yeah.
doesn't look like it's a pamphlet about all the different pieces of public art.
Yeah, I think it would just be a summary of what our ordinance says.
Correct, yeah. And I think it's more probably a resource that'll be used for people getting into the development process to understand that there is there is an ordinance in place for public art.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
I
I
go-
think we can do that internally. I think we could have an intern work on that from the ordinance, that we can, when a developer walks in and says, what do you mean I have to pay $100,000 for public art? And we would say, well, you can either read this 9-page ordinance, or you can look at this 2-page pamphlet.
The
So I think
lawyers
that's-
can look at the ordinance.
What's that? Their
Said
attorneys.
Their
yeah,
attorneys can look at the ordinance.
Most of them are just saying, write the check.
It can be on the website, too. I mean,
Yeah.
if you, on the city.
But I think that's something we could bring back. We could do that internally.
Well, I see on here we have a TBD on the donation policy. Haven't we agreed that that's something that needs to be done sooner rather than later? Shouldn't we put a date on that?
We can. I was just going to go through these one by one. So the
Okay.
priority list of projects, I think that's what was done on May 8th, that talks about those 3. And then the database, again, it seems like that came out of the slideshow you just saw, so that's TBD. Again, if you want, is it 3 months from now, 6 months from now, et cetera, I guess is really what we can put in there. The RFQ, I think these 9 and 10, obviously, I think we want to have done. What we don't have is actually the project plan, yeah. So I think if that's really the first step, is developing the public art project plan, that's the key date we should put in here. So, I don't know what you think that
Yeah,
time-wise.
I think starting the public art plan is going to precede the,
And we can put these in
RFQ
sequential order, I guess, is really what I'm
yeah.
thinking, between, some of these are just leftovers from Heather or Sydney, and now me and Diane. So I think we need to go back and put these in what we think is a sequential order. Diane, does that make sense? You and I? We can do that.
So what do you think is a reasonable time frame for the public art plan that we're discussing?
I think part of it is the funding, the funding piece of the puzzle. I mean, if we don't know, I mean, we can certainly come up with descriptions, probably can't come up with a budget or the timeline at this point,
But we can start putting the the format of what a public art
Right.
project
Right.
plan is, that all can be going, and then we insert
Right.
the projects.
Right.
Okay.
And I was going to ask too, in terms of kind of budget and timeline, I know when we had, is it Liz from Parks and Rec come and present the dog park, she mentioned they're working towards a completion date of May 2022, correct? Somewhere in that ballpark, and that they have some budget set aside. Do we know the exact dollars and cents to that?
I want to say if it's $1 million, it's 1%, so it's 10,000.
Okay,
So we have about, I want to say about 7,000 right now. We have a developer, he's fully approved project. Thought they were going to pull building permits 2 months ago. That we would have a check of 100 grand, we could get moving. So I thought they were going to pull
Yeah.
permits. So I don't know if folks are thinking lumber's too high now, and I don't know what they're doing. So I just heard today that U-Haul, if they do their project, their arts fee is going to be about 80,000 for U-Haul. That's down at US 60 and Idaho on the southeast corner. So they're in for plan approval. When that check comes in, I don't know. So that's why I'm saying, well, maybe a public art project plan just starts with the dog park.
Correct,
Start
yeah.
building the framework of the project plan, and then we can add those pieces to it.
yeah, I think we have more pieces, we have more knowns about the dog park than any other potential project that was determined at the work session, is my understanding.
And some of it is a framework, right? We're just building a framework for this. So I don't know if you think August is too
Yeah,
soon.
that sounds good.
So if we, TBD, we'll just say, I don't know if it's at the August meeting, but August, I don't know what our second Monday, August. We'll have a draft, I guess. So August 9th is the second Monday, right?
Correct.
Okay. So we would have a draft, we'll try to get a draft by then.
Okay.
Okay. And with the, kind of in tandem to that, because you mentioned, sometimes from an RFQ, it can, I know that the lead times for commissioning someone, them having the work ready, and then them actually coordinating the installation can be, it can be pretty long. Do we have enough information to start putting together a preliminary RFQ for the dog park?
Yeah.
That we could include as part of that
Yeah.
draft?
I guess I should put August 1st, even though, because if we're mailing stuff out to you ahead of time, I'll just make it consistent. Even though the meeting's on the 9th, I think we just say for the master plan for the RFQ.
So and we've got
And that's a big
August
one.
1st for that item, create a draft request for an RFQ for the dog park. So
Okay.
we've got that in there. And then the next thing is a public art agreement, and that's basically a legal contract. So, what I can do is take examples of past public art agreements and go through that, and then some of them are 50 pages. So let me go through that and find something that works. Huh? Okay.
Make it 5.
That
I think
works.
this helps illustrate why we need to put these in sequential order.
Yes.
That goes back to your question, Liz, is when do we do the donation policy? I think we can put them in sequential order. That'll help us think about.
Yeah, because there are going to be items that we can do concurrently based on priority. But I think what's important is continuing to build the momentum coming out of this work session.
Yeah. Each public art project. So even number 13 kind of goes into line 13 kind of goes into that art project plan, right? Is that a function or a component of the?
Yeah,
Yeah, because that description is essentially similar to the slide you presented on considerations to take into account for citing any project.
yeah, that would go in the project plan, because it's just a broad overview of what you want the public art to do, how you want it to function.
So an art, like number 14, design an art maintenance and restoration plan. It says it's in progress. I have no idea
Yeah.
what that means. I think that's for all our existing art. But I think that Dianne mentioned I think the workshop was building a database of all your art and when it was installed, and so
Right.
then you kind of know, well, when does it need maintenance and how does that take place? So I would say loosely, it's not really in progress. I think it's just, we have the inventory, but we haven't really built Dianne talked about an access database. I don't know if it's going to be an access database or some other better database, but somehow as our list of art goes, stuff that we're responsible for maintaining, what does that, build that? So again, maybe that kind of slides down the line too.
If, I don't know about your GIS system here, but if whoever does your GIS, if they have the ability to create fields that are not accessible to the public,
Yeah,
then you can put your maintenance restoration plan in a GIS.
yeah, I can talk to JC, our GIS guy, because
Yeah.
he helped Sydney, Sean actually helped put the mapping piece together. So you can create a relational database with whatever we want to do there.
Right, yeah, that's a really good point, because I know that the forms that we filled out for creating that inventory, were intended to assist with that kind of data cross-checking later. So yeah, no point reinventing the wheel if we already
No.
have one database started.
I think what'll be key is who's in charge of that part of the GIS map, because you're gonna have to have somebody who on a regular basis does the rounds and takes a look at all the artwork. You know, a lot of times if something is damaged, you get a call from the public, and then but a lot of times there will be works that are kind of slowly deteriorating, and you're not gonna notice it. So if there's somebody on staff who can go out and actually take a look, sometimes it's Parks and Rec, sometimes it's an outside maintenance restoration person to just go out and make sure things are, otherwise you may be creating a hazard.
And I wouldn't expect that to be I wouldn't expect existing art maintenance to be part of the project plan, but I would anticipate that there's maybe an annual or semi-annual review that, that maybe is, when we're reviewing the project art plans annually, there's also maybe a separate review of the existing art, not necessarily going and viewing every single piece of it, but,
It would
that
be
seems
good-
like a good timing to
Yeah.
assess whether additional maintenance may be required for.
Isn't that
select
under
pieces.
item 19, line 19 on this work plan?
Yes.
Right, so those are kind of,
But I think you could combine 19 with 14 somehow. That's like an A and a B or something like that.
but then, I think where there's the divergence between that, so yes, it is the implementation of maintenance of program, but then with the project plans, I would also anticipate that part of that project plan would be documentation of anticipated maintenance and, any ongoing requirements for maintaining it.
And I think it'd be great to have whoever's in charge of going out and taking a look at the artwork every 6 months or whenever, and doing like a condition report. And you can just give that person like a clipboard and, a sheet with 2 or 3 different things, and then they can actually draw a picture of the sculpture and just say, and circle areas that need work. And then maybe every 6 months or every year, just doing a document that's a maintenance report. And that would be separate from a project plan or whatever. It'd be something, it could be incorporated in it, but traditionally, there's organizations that just do a maintenance, restoration, conservation report on a regular basis, so that you all have a copy and you know what's been looked at, you know what's been worked on, and so forth.
Yeah, I think that could be part of number 14. So it's not just a plan, but it's what those reports are, what they look like, that all could be built out under that. Maybe combine 14 and 19 and then talk about what are the elements of the art maintenance and restoration. Really, it's a program more so than a plan, I would say.
So what I'm imagining here is just kind of, I think visually, but, almost a heading for the project plan, right? Because that's kind of its own document, and within that, we have the steps we need to execute that project and document the project. The maintenance plan seems to be another heading, and the donation policy seems to be another heading. Is that?
Well, I think the donation policy is part of, whether it's a separate document or not, to me, it's more of a art master plan or appendix
Yeah.
in the larger master plan, not for the project. So
Right.
it's kind of like, what is our donation policy?
I think these start to be kind of chapters in a master plan
Yeah.
as we develop them out.
Yeah. Marketing, et cetera, that to me would be part of a master plan,
Yeah.
not the project plan. Yes, there might be marketing for the project.
Right.
But how are we marketing public art in general? That's a chapter of a master plan.
So,
So how about if Diane and I go back and we will reorient this and review the deadlines and then who's going to do what? Is this just city staff? Is this going to be a consultant? Is this a future contract? It's, her contract's pretty limited, so.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, and let me know if,
So we got to walk before we can crawl, yeah.
yeah,
So we'll bring this back at the next meeting in a logical order, and then we can further tweak it. And it's on the agenda, it seems, every meeting, so.
one other, before we move on real quickly, I had another kind of question, and it kind of popped into my head a couple of times as we were talking. First time was talking about the public art pamphlet, which is, if that pamphlet is something that is going to people outlining the process for public art based on the ordinances, I'm wondering, we have on our agenda a notice for public hearings. Do we need, and kind of same thing with, as part of the project art plan and part of, I imagine art adoption, is there the necessity to start making it known how to make a agenda item within a public hearing from the public at large in the event that
Well, I guess anything can be a public hearing. There's required public hearings that are part of a law for like rezoning and things like that. But we can, if you want to invite the public, they can have 5 minutes to talk, and we can put items on there. So if you want the public to comment, if you will, on a pamphlet, we would put a pamphlet item. It would say presentation, discussion, and public hearing on the draft pamphlet. And then the public could come in and comment on that. Is that right, Joel? Yes. Yeah.
And I guess I'm curious, just in terms of.
Same thing
like-
with the project plan. Whatever you want input from the public, we can put an item on there so the public can talk.
Okay.
Bumping,
And if there's let's just say for the sake of an example, if there's someone who has a piece of art that they are interested in adopting, they'd likely come through the city. It may be known to us, but at which point, if we needed to schedule a public hearing, it would be an agenda item that'd be discussed, and then later down the road, we could schedule a public hearing if needed.
For what kind of item?
If there was an adoption, I'm just saying if someone wanted to,
Oh, if we were going to adopt a policy or adopt a,
well, I was saying adopt a piece of art that we wanted public input on.
yes, that's really gets to the other slideshow that really talked about, yes, we want public involvement.
Yeah, and so I guess I'm
So,
just curious if there's do we need some sort of basic contact for people to kind of know that there's a commission that exists? Just,
Yeah, we can do work with the public information officer and get words out. I mean, as far as, it's difficult now to advertise for a public meeting because
Right,
there's
right.
no newspapers to advertise in anymore, whether it's a display ad, it wouldn't be a legal ad. It's really just using our city Facebook, Twitter, website to announce that, hey, there's this art coming up at the dog park, and maybe Liz has a list, the other Liz has a list of folks who've been engaged in the dog park project, and we start there. Maybe that's where we learn how to engage the public, is through that first project.
Maybe you guys have My Emma. There's a program, like anyone who's been interested in what's going on in the city, they subscribe to this. It's not a website, but it's a notification system called My Emma. And the public information officer may already have that, and it's,
Well, we have on our city website, you can go to our city website and Apache Junction, and you can sign in, or I want to get updates, so you can get, I don't know if they're RSS feeds or whatever they are, but you can browse events calendar, learn more somewhere, receive email notifications, so we can do that here. They would just get general email, not, I don't know how you tailor make it, say, I want only emails relating to art. I don't know if they can do that or not, but.
Well, you know, I know it's informal, but our commissioners have been really diligent about going on the Apache Junction Facebook pages and announcing things that are going on and letting people know about it. I mean, they go on at least 3 different pages, and they do let people know.
Yeah.
So they've been spreading the word as well.
As it relates to the commission, I don't know, I know you can, how you can find council meetings, let's see. Government, Development Services, I don't know if we have a planning and zoning, I don't even know where we find public art, to be honest with you. I have to ask Sydney, I guess. Visitors, things to do, anyway. So yeah, we obviously have to market ourselves.
All right, well,
I think that's, where am I here? Let's see. I think that's really all we have for the May 8th, the work plan. That's really the bulk of the agenda, is talking about, you know, how we build this, and I guess we'll come back with a revised work plan in July and a draft of a public art project plan in August.
all right, and so for new business, is there anything additional for new business for the discussion of the public art project plan?
We don't have anything unless, no, I don't have anything.
Okay. Yeah, I know we're getting close to time here. Looking down the agenda, I think we should be able to move pretty quickly. So I guess the last question I have is, would it be too quick to next week start discussing, I guess, would it be a subcommittee that was discussed during the working session that would be needed to help really steer the direction of that project plan for?
No, I think this project plan is this group.
Okay.
When you get into the art for the dog park, that's when we had a little bit of disagreement to beginning. I think I understand it now. Everyone will get a chance to serve on the selection committee to select the artists. So we would basically put names in a hat, and whoever the first 2 lucky winners are, they would be part of the dog park art. Then the next lucky winners would be part of the roundabout, and the next, so we would rotate 2 commissioners, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know that we need to, no, you are the commission that's going to work on the public project, the public art project plan.
Okay.
And you're the commission that's going to work on the donation policy. And all that can be filtered up to the council.
Great, great. So I guess I'm just wondering if concurrently there's something we can do next month in anticipation of the project plan being more rounded out, that we could then, you know, when we get the presentation in August on the project plan, come September, we may be looking at that point to have the 2 committee members selected, start garnering other members from the community for that selection committee. Is there something we need to do next month to start setting that up, besides just work on the
I think you
project
could do
plan?
that in August. I don't know why you would have to pick the members of the arts.
And I would also.
That doesn't matter. I don't know.
Or start, I'm just thinking maybe like start developing a marketing strategy or something, a method of reaching out. Just because I think next month's agenda, unless there's some presentations that we're planning, we'll have some availability to move something forward.
So basically, we have to develop an RFP, RFQ. We got to develop the thanks, Joel. We have to develop the art project plan, and we're going to update the work plan. I guess I'm not, the RFP, RFQ comes before or at the same time. We got to approve the RFQ before we have the committee, I think, unless this committee here is going to look at the RFQ. Then after the RFQ is drafted, we send it out. While we're sending that out, we get the artist selection committee going.
Right.
Okay, and I apologize if I'm being redundant, but I just want to, so do we have a list of, or a means of contacting people who would be on that committee outside. Is that something that we turn around quickly, or is
Can
there?
I make a suggestion?
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
this is the dog park, which is in a specific neighborhood. Liz may have been working with somebody already in that neighborhood.
And I think the commission, the Parks Commission might want to be involved. So I think you take 2 from this commission, you take 1 council member, you take 1 from the Parks and Rec Board that's not on any other board, because a lot of them are on multiple boards. So that gives you 1, 2, 4 right there, and then you work with someone in the dog community or another artist at large in the community.
Maybe if there's somebody,
And 5 is enough?
5 is good for this project. And I would suggest an arts professional, and that can be someone who manages public art in a nearby city, or somebody who, sometimes it's an educator who teaches art. I would just keep that open right now.
So
but-
maybe you don't want someone from the Park and Rec Board, but I think we want a council member, because ultimately this thing's going to the council. And I think you want 2 from this, that's 3. You get an artist I won't call him artist in residence, but some nearby artist
Yeah.
who can be kind of a voice for art. And then whoever the 5th person is that just a general citizen, or is that someone who has expressed interest in the dog park, or is that someone from the Park and Rec Board?
Okay. I mean, would it be worthwhile to have that to discuss it in more detail in July?
Yeah, that's up to you, that's fine.
Yeah, and I think if you could talk to Liz, just because she's been so involved in this whole dog park, if there may be a resident who just really stands
Yeah.
out and just who's been driving the whole dog park and maybe is interested in art, that would be your community stakeholder. And then the 2 people who are going to serve on the artist selection panel, they will give a report afterwards. I mean, instead of having me come up and give a report about, here's the artist we picked, I think it'd be great if somebody on the Arts Commission who served on the panel gave a report and said, here's how many people applied applied for this commission, here's how we narrowed it down, here's why we chose this artist. And then everybody on the commission is familiar with that whole panel process. And because I think the best thing is to get, and this is where the PIO can come into play, when you actually have your RFQ and it's ready to go out, then you're going to want to let the community know, hey, we've got this public art project and we're just starting it. If you know someone who's an artist, maybe they want to apply. Maybe they want to apply and get the community interested in the whole process.
So we could have an agenda item that really talks about the dog park art, and we're going to be, basically, we can work with the PIO. We need 2 members. We need really a community stakeholder, and we need a community arts stakeholder, if you want to call them that. So we put out a request and then you can pick who is going to be on this committee. So, council member, I guess we would go to the mayor, and he could pick names out of a hat. You're going to pick names out of a hat. Then we have 2 more. One is going to be someone in the arts, and someone is going to be from the community at large who is interested in the dog park, I guess. That would be your 5-member committee. But we can, if you want to have that as an agenda item to further refine that, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of got ahead of myself too, moving into call for future agenda items. So we'll go ahead and put that under that category. And if there's no other call for future agenda items?
I just wanted to have a general discussion. I know you guys are sick of me. I don't know what you guys think of this announcement of artwork. This item has kind of, in some ways, with all due respect, has kind of got us going sideways sometimes. So I think, I don't know how we share art that is public art. I don't know. I guess I was just, I'm trying to still have us
Yeah.
focused on the dog park and the thing and how do we do that. So to me, maybe it's announcement of artwork that is at a dog park, in a roundabout, or at a regional park like Silly Mountain. And we focus on that as opposed to art that is
Yeah.
Something more related to what we're doing.
correct. So if you want to do that, maybe we narrow it down to that. So nothing wrong with guitars and burros, and I love all that stuff, you know. But I think we need to, because that's like a project. That's
Right.
like, yeah. So maybe we
I think the intent
focus.
with that was to gear us towards a project, and now
Yeah.
that we have
Yeah.
that direction.
So if you have stuff, that's great. If you see a roundabout and you want to send a picture of it and whatever, that's fine, just to give us ideas. So, let's see, agenda items. So on the next agenda, we'll have a refined work plan, and we'll talk about the artist selection committee. Is that really the right way to call it, Diane?
Yeah, artist selection panel.
Artist selection
And-
panel.
Selection panel.
And again, I don't know if I would broadcast to the community to apply to be on the panel, because you're going to have a lot of letdown people. I would say.
I was just thinking of a way to get the word out that we have an arts commission and we're looking for somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, people are going to get let down. That's what life is all about. What's your, so I'm trying to balance between
I think.
letting people know we have an arts commission and we want the public involved versus just handpicking somebody and someone saying, you're going to also have someone mad that says, how come they got to be on the commission? How come you didn't open it up? I'm not saying there's a right way or wrong way, but we'll
No, I
hear
think
that too.
That's a great point. I think maybe for this first project, we be focused and ask people to be on it. And then for the next one, see if there are people who actually do say, I really want to be on a selection panel. But I think people have to be qualified to be on a selection panel. Anybody can say, I'm an arts professional, but what exactly does that mean?
Well, would have to define that.
Yeah.
Is someone who,
And I think that's part of I think that's why it's a helpful
Maybe-
agenda item
yeah, okay, all
for
right.
July.
So when you have a request for qualifications, you have eligibility, and then you have to say, is a practicing artist, and that means, and I think it's in your ordinance, somebody who has a record of exhibitions, or is represented by a gallery, or has a degree, like a bachelor's or a master's in fine arts. So there's an actual definition, and that
For the
is-
artist.
for what an artist is.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to be on a panel and they say they're an artist, if they've fulfilled
They meet that
those-
criteria.
Yeah.
Okay. And if they're a community member, what criteria do they meet? Maybe we should talk about this at the next meeting.
I don't know, it sounds good right now.
Okay. All
I
right.
mean, Joel already stepped away, so I guess we've got all the time.
Well,
in the
we're
world.
videotaping this, so we have to kind of stick to the agenda. So we're talking about future agenda items. So I have two right now, in particular, which is the,
The selection committee and the update to the work plan, right?
yes.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if there was anything else on the work plan that, I guess I'll find out more about the pamphlet. I guess we can talk about it as part of the work plan.
Right.
We'll
which
talk
is
about the mapping and the GIS and the database. I'll find out about that.
All right.
But I think the biggest help, I think, for us, will be put this spreadsheet in a logical format.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so everybody understands what the action item is, when it's gonna start, kind of who's doing it, and, when do we need it, kind of thing.
Exactly. And I think that'll help us get kind of a right foot and a left foot moving forward, so we know what's coming. We already know what's coming in August now. Now we're prepping for that September meeting
In
in
one of my
July.
previous lives, I was a project manager. And that's something that's just part of your project. Your timelines are always in order of what your goals are, who's going to do it. So now you've got some accountability built into it, and you've got a time frame built in. This is a nice work plan here, but the dates are all over the place.
Yeah.
So Larry's right, we need to refine that and put it in chronological order. Because otherwise, we're going to be all over the board.
And I think we need to reassess, because a lot of these are put under this category. And so to move something up, that's from this category, maybe just rethink these categories.
Yeah, I don't think
You
there's,
could even do away with the categories. You could even do away with the categories,
Okay.
in my thinking.
yeah, I don't know that there's anything necessarily sacred.
I think they were kind of built into the ordinance and kind of a logical progression of you see, maintenance is kind of long-term goals, so. But yeah, there's no rhyme or reason, we don't have to follow that. But I'm guessing that's where Heather was thinking is, here's the ordinance, let's put it into some sort of format, but,
Well, it's easier to maintain a chronological
Yeah.
form if you don't have it as categories.
right, yep, that's fine, yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, moving on then to the selection of our next meeting date, time, location.
So you want to keep it at 5:30? Does that seem to work, or you want to leave it at 5? Does anybody care?
5:30 works good.
5:30 is better?
Yeah, fine,
Okay,
that's fine.
all right.
And we,
I move that the Public Art Commission hold a regular meeting on July 12th, 2021 at 5:30 PM in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard.
do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Chair Bice,
Yes.
Commissioner Danford,
Yes.
Commissioner Ham,
Yes.
Commissioner Klatt, not here, Vice Chair Nicholas.
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm probably going to call in for that meeting. I'm going to be out of town, but, so there will be a call-in number.
I'll be
That,
out of town for that one too, and I won't be calling it.
Okay, all right.
Do you know what we have?
I may have Barb come. Barb would be happy to come and take the minutes or whatever, but you guys can run something without me. I think I just make it last longer is all I do.
All right, well, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the City of Apache Junction Public Arts Commission is 6:10 PM on June 14th. Thank you very much.